everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Principle Podcast, Astrology for Authentic Living. My name is Mel, and I'm with Energetic Principles.
And I'm Shawna with Neo Feminine Astrology.
And we're here today in our second episode. We're so glad to be back. And this episode is going to be for the week of May 29th, where we have titled it Venus and You, Matters of the Heart. So the purpose of this episode is to give you inspiration and guidance for upcoming transits that are going to be happening within the next week, and to also provide you with real-life examples of what you might expect to see.
I do want to share with you that some of these transits may influence you more than others based on your personal makeup, based on your birth chart. And so the theme this week is a big emphasis on relationships and values. And so some of this may apply to you more than most. And so I encourage you to notice as we're speaking and giving examples, how this can apply to your life directly. And maybe some of it applies a lot, maybe some of it doesn't. So take what you like, leave the rest. And one of my favorite teachers said to me recently that if it's not in your natal chart, it's not going to happen. And vice versa. So that means that all of the transits, they're all just elaborating on your natal makeup, like your internal makeup. So if you have a potential for expanding more connection in love, or maybe you're working on your money, financial situation, or maybe there's business relationships, whatever it is that you're working on right now, I want you to apply that to your life situation. So it's not like something's just going to come out of nowhere and blindside you.
No.
So, yeah.
Well, let's hope not.
No. So I'm excited to explore this and to share this week. Mm-hmm.
I think, just to add to that real quick about, noting what works for, or what sticks out to you and what doesn't, it's actually a great exercise, in utilizing your own intuition. Because when we have those moments of heightened awareness, so if you hear something and it sticks out to you and you're like, wait, that's kind of speaking to me. That's also, not only are we speaking to you, but your intuition is speaking to you to listen. So just open up your ears and whatever sticks with you, dive deeper into that.
Mm-hmm.
So Shawna, let's see what we have. What's in store for this week? What aspects will we be encountering?
Yes. So this week we will talk about the first quarter moon in the sign of Virgo. We will talk about Venus conjunct Uranus in Aries and the Sun square Neptune.
Well, we have quite the week ahead of transits, I think. So, how did you feel with this new moon in Gemini that we had? I feel a little bit lighter. I feel some hopeful energy going.
I gotta say, I'll preface this with I'm in the middle of a major Pluto transit. So I was expecting to feel all jazzed and happy with the new moon in Gemini. I felt pretty rough.
Oh no.
Yeah, but I think it was just a lot of other things. But today I feel great. So.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Well, us Cancers, when Gemini when the sun moves into Gemini, that's also our solar 12th house. So it can, dig up some, actually that's Pluto's territory, digging up that something that's lying below the surface.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling, luckily that didn't happen to me yet.
How are you feeling? How did you do with the new moon?
I feel pretty good. I have been wrapping my mind around some new things. And it's just all about like gaining new perspectives, and that's pretty much what we're doing. So this week leading up, cause our first transit that we're going to talk about will be the first quarter moon in Virgo. Which, will be exact on Thursday early in the morning. So we won't really start to see this action until about midweek. We're going to be still riding this new moon wave where, like the first week of the new moon, and the whole purpose of the first quarter is basically to, get us aligned around our own intentions. And it's really an action time, to go forward. So luckily we'll have a few days to kind of make some movement before we're hit with some of these transits that I have a feeling will have us reevaluating some things that we have going on. So let's dive into our first transit then. And that is the first quarter moon in Virgo. And just to reiterate, we're going to be having that first quarter moon, exactly on Thursday, June 1st at 5:42 a.m. And that's Pacific time. And that will be at 11 degrees Virgo. So chances are you're probably going to start to feel this, on that Wednesday since it's so early in the morning. So Shawna, tell us the quote you have for this, first quarter moon.
Yeah. And, so I like to think of this moon as sorting through opportunities, because it's Virgo, it's discerning. And, within this lunar cycle, it's really interesting because we're going from the new moon Gemini, which is about, as you said, new perspectives and discovering new things. And Gemini is essentially just like collecting data. There is not really a concern with if it works, if it doesn't work, if it's right, if it's wrong, etc. And then this first quarter moon of Virgo comes in to help us move through that. And so I've chosen this quote particularly for this energy. It is one of my favorites. It's the Serenity Prayer. And it goes, please grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I love this because this is like classic Virgo energy. It's like sorting and deciding, okay, what do I got? What do I want to do with it? And I think the ultimate empowerment of this week is that you get to decide what to do with things, and that wisdom in there to know the difference between what you can change and you can't. So.
Absolutely. Yes. Cause as you said, Virgo is all about, discerning. So we have to discern, where to put our energy and where not to put it, and you just got to get a little more in tune about, what's really around you, and especially with this Gemini. It's going to be squaring that sun in Gemini, which, I have a feeling is going to be bringing a lot of information and new opportunities our way, and just, different ways of thinking that now we're going to have to, dive into that Virgo energy, and get down to brass tacks of what is going to work, and what you should accept in those areas, of what you might need to let go of to go forward, etc. So, I find it interesting too, because that day Venus is also trining Saturn, which is considerable note, especially since our following transit is going to be Venus related, but we'll get to that when the time is right. So I think with Virgo also is Virgo, because it's so discerning, is that it's a problem solver. Like there might need to be a problem that has to be solved, at this time, and you're going to have to like get in touch with yourself and figure out how you can wrap your mind around something that needs to be solved. And also getting real, because Virgo is all about, reality and getting real. And that's where the discernment comes in. Is this really going to work, or am I being realistic in these thoughts I'm having, et cetera, et cetera. So I can see a switch to that with that Virgo.
Yeah. And I find that the first quarter moon is always a time where we need to draw a clear boundary line with what it is that we will accept and what it is that we won't. And, some signs are better at doing that than others. I think that Virgo is really good about saying, okay, this is what I'm about. I care about this not so much. So I think that it's one of the easier first quarter moons to have. That being said, with the opposition to Neptune, I don't know, it could go either way. I think that the Neptune may in a way actually balance out the energy, but it could make things, a little harder to move through. So I think this combination definitely sorting through different opportunities, as you said, Mel. And, I think this week it's so important, especially earlier in the week, to be very clear on where it is that you're going, what's important to you, what it is that you want to accomplish. And then the remainder of the week, you can draw from that foundation.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And it's interesting because I drew a couple cards for this first quarter, and I got the Four of Swords as the focus and the Hermit as the grounding card, which is very fitting for a Virgo moon. I mean, the Hermit is ruled by Virgo. And what Virgo, like that's great about Virgo energy is it is able to, Virgos need some time. They need some time to themselves. I've noticed, like, they have to take that moment out, in order to connect with their opposite side. And that is Pisces, and being able to, spiritually connect. And so I find these two cards interesting together. And, I think together it's really talking about taking the time to do our inner work. So chances are we're going to need to pull back at this time, to really get our mind wrapped around everything that's happening to us, and allow ourselves to go inward. Which a lot of times that first quarter has to do with, building that action and challenging it, and challenging yourself and building. It's actually like the first challenge that you kind of encounter in the new moon cycle. That's the purpose of the square. But rather than a lot of action going towards that energy, to me, it's more about withdrawing, and taking some time to, spiritually get in tune with, your own thoughts and get some clarity and some mental calm around some pressure that might be outside you at this time.
Yeah. And I love those cards as well because they are ultimately resting on the self to be the authority, that you are the authority of you. Like the Hermit card, I think that sometimes people misunderstand that because it looks like this curmudgeon old man with a lantern, and he looks a little rough around the edges. He hasn't been out in society that often. But that card, it's so powerful. It speaks to drawing on your intuition, your inner wisdom, and I think that kind of energy is really soothing for Virgo. And I think it's the highest side of Virgo because so many people think of Virgo as analytical and practical and getting things done. And Virgo is that, but Virgo is also highly spiritual when there's the opportunity to go inside. So I love that as like this portray. I feel like these cards really portray the highest side of this first quarter moon in Virgo.
I definitely agree. It's really about strategic withdrawal at this time. And if you're not as proactive in that department, sometimes, a little illness will be sent our way. So if any of you find yourself feeling a little under the weather at this time, don't push through it. Actually just kind of pull back. And give yourself a little, give yourself some time to recoup, because you're going to find yourself in a more peaceful, like something is probably out of balance to begin with, and you're being asked to call back and get a little more peace. It's okay to go into seclusion sometimes, because the Hermit's really asking you about your own, like, what's distracting you at this time? Like, are you able to let go of any type of, distractions that are pulling you off balance? Like, you have to pull back in and get centered, in yourself. Cause Virgo is still sitting on the bottom of the chart, essentially. So it's a very personal, self-based energy. So, we're going to be doing some emotional cutting away, basically, cause that's the whole thing with Virgo is she's holding the wheat and you have to cut the wheat from the chaff. So basically, I think that's what we're going to be doing, right now with this first quarter moon. So we have to get in touch with ourselves. Our subconscious and our intuition and just our higher selves have a message for us at this time. And we have to allow ourselves to listen.
Definitely.
It's also interesting too, just because, and I'm just throwing this out there as like a key for thought as we go into the other transits that we'll be talking about. And that is that the moon and the sun, which will be squaring each other, that's the first quarter, they're both ruled by Mercury. So it's interesting that they're both ruled by the same planet, even though they're in square aspect. And that last aspect is going to be together. They're going to be triggering Pluto. So there's a lot of energy around this first quarter moon, for us to really get in touch with ourselves and go inside, I think. So I'm excited about that.
I think it really will activate because it is at 11 degrees of Virgo, 11 degrees of Gemini, and then with Neptune being at 14 degrees of Pisces, I think that it will really activate the Sun square Neptune, and especially for anyone that has mutable signs in their chart. I wouldn't be surprised if people are feeling that, and if the Neptunian kind of energy is activated within all of this. And I think the one thing that I was thinking for this week, along with the other transits, with the first quarter moon and then the other transits that we'll talk about, is body work could be a really nice supplement for people this week. Anything where it's like getting massage or doing yoga, anything to ground yourself into your body.
Get you in your own body and out of that Neptunian energy.
Yeah, both the Neptunian and then with the Virgo and Gemini energy, that can be very heady, and you can be like thinking of all of the things and not feeling into your gut, feeling into your intuition. So I love the body work for this week, because I think that can only help us become more clear and strong, and to be able to take next steps very confidently.
Yes, because essentially that is what the first quarter moon is all about. It's our first challenge to take the next step, because we're all building something up until that full moon. So there's just a lot of, the first 2 weeks after a new moon, there's just a lot of energy going around anyways. And it's really kind of the meat of the story. And then the last 2 weeks we wrap it up. So right now we're building that tail, and we're developing those pictures, and the real meat of this month's transit is, now. So let's take advantage of that. And I think yoga, actually, to go back to that real quick, the body work, yoga is a perfect example of that, because not only are you getting into your body, but you also are accessing that spiritual element, which the hermit is really calling for there. So, yeah, get into some of that. I'm going to get into that myself, because I don't know about you, if you have any, because you're a Virgo rising too, so you might have little triggers there. And I have my node, actually, my node and Saturn are directly on this trigger, square my Mars. So, I'll let you guys know how that goes next week.
Yeah, Mel, you would definitely, with the Mars there, you would definitely benefit from some yoga for sure. Even the Mars in Gemini, like free writing and that kind of thing. I know for me, and I'm Virgo rising, and this will be activating my ascendant and my midheaven pretty within like a degree or two. So
that's, I hear you.
How I feel.
Yeah, I got the 10th and the 7th. So, wish me luck. Okay. No, it'll be fine. We're both Cancers. So we are two people that really embrace, the moon cycles, because there's a lot of wisdom to be found, and really our energy is tied up in, these emotional, cycles and triggers that happen. And, it's the bigger things that are painting this picture, but it's the moon cycles and where the moon's moving, essentially, that kind of triggers these, like the start of it all,
Yeah.
That first emotion that you have that kind of starts the whole,
And I find, and I'll just say this one last little bit and then we'll move on, but I find so much value in tracking the transits of the moon through my personal chart. Just what house the moon is moving through throughout the month. I find that the themes always resonate, and it helps me plan my month. It helps me feel better about what's happening in life, and for me, it's very valuable. So
yeah, it's kind of gives a little bit of a rhyme to the reason. Make a cycle pun there. But, okay. So, just a little wrapping up reflection questions for this, first quarter moon in Virgo. I would ask yourself, where are you being discerning? Like, where do you need to get down to brass tacks and like discern some things in your life and, cut out maybe what you no longer need, cause, Virgo is really great about, just kind of cutting it off. Mm-hmm. This isn't necessary for going forward. And I'd also ask, what is your inner self saying? Are you listening to your intuition at this time? And do you need to maybe take a moment and get in touch with your own self and what it has to say? Because the chances are, you're going to find the answers to your problems in your own stillness. So that's what I would say to reflect on for this transit.
Love it.
Okay, so let's move on to our next aspect, and that is Venus conjuncting Uranus, what we are titling Liberations of Love. And Venus is going to conjunct Uranus on Saturday, June 3rd it's pretty early in the morning. It's at 12:31 Pacific time. So chances are, you're going to feel this more on Friday is when this aspect's going to be bubbling up. But you'll feel it on Saturday as well. So just keep that in mind. And that will be exact at 27 degrees Aries. So Shawna, share the quote you have for us for Venus conjunct Uranus.
Yes. So I love this quote for this particular aspect because I think that it speaks so beautifully to this combination of not just Venus-Uranus, but also Venus-Uranus in the sign of independent Aries.
Yes.
And so this is I take responsibility. I'm probably going to butcher this name. This is by the philosopher Thich Nhat Hanh. Says, you must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. And so, of course, the love is the Venus, and then the feeling free is Uranus. And I also think Aries to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I love this conjunction because it really does call for a combination of being connected, being in a relationship, but also in a way that feels free, in a way that honors each person's individuality.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we tend to not remember that we're in a relationship with our own selves. And that speaks a lot to the whole Aries, and it's interesting on this day because when anything conjuncts Uranus, you're going to get some type of wake up call. Like that's the nature of Uranus, is it kind of, it doesn't change your mind per se, but it brings new things into the picture and kind of rather fast to where you're like, oh, I have to wait a second. I feel like there can be a repression around Uranus energy, and that is what leads to the need to break free. So it's very interesting because that same day we're going to have the Sun trining Jupiter in Libra. So here we have this other relationship theme. And then the moon actually will have moved into Libra by then and will conjunct that Jupiter and trine the Sun. So I think that although this aspect can be a little jarring for some, not all. Some might get, depending on where your planets are, once again, like if you have a personal planet that's triggering this 27 degrees Aries or any cardinal in that area, you're probably going to feel this more than others. But I think one of the reasons why we have it titled Liberations of Love is because of that Jupiter and that Libra energy. There's something about the air that day, even though there's some type of breakdown or, the new, just something that unexpected that might, come to light. There's a real growth aspect there, with that, Sun, Moon, Jupiter going on. To me.
Yeah. And I see those aspects, Mel, the Sun trining Jupiter and the Moon, conjunct Jupiter. I think that brings some support, and I see it as a softening. The Libra Jupiter energy is like, it brings some diplomacy to the situation. Where with Aries, there is none.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is we just, not too long ago had the whole opposition with Venus there. And, something could have been triggered at that time to where now it's, now that we have that Uranus trigger, cause when transits happen to us, it's not like it happens and then it's just gone. The transit is really just sending us into a new moment of awareness that we can build upon, which is our life,
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think for this, I'm really curious to see how everyone feels and what the mood is in the world, because, this transit, it's a call for deepening your relationships, for elaborating on your financial situation and even your self-worth, especially your self-worth with it being in Aries, so that you feel like more of yourself. That's really what I see here.
I think that is a golden way to look at it, because the closest aspect to this conjunction is actually that North Node in Leo. So there's really a soul growth that is about whatever is happening now. And like you said, like with that Aries energy and the self and the self-worth and the self-growth and the self-love and the self-interest, once again, we're coming back to that kind of Leo North Node theme where we're being asked to, kind of get in touch with what we need as people. Aries is a very selfish energy. It can be. But that doesn't mean it's bad to be selfish, sometimes you need to be selfish for your own self-love, in order to, so.
Yeah. And so I think for how it is that you would experience this, I think it really depends on what your natural tendency is when it comes to relationship, which is Venus, of course, but then also your financial situation. And if you're a person who tends more towards really strong connections and even borders on codependence, or to attach very strongly if there's like even a fear element there, this energy could be really balancing. It could be, as you said, Mel, almost like a wake-up call, where there's something that is where there's over-attachment. In contrast, if you are a person that has more of an aversion attachment method, where you hold things at arm's distance and there's a fear of getting too close, this transit, I wonder, I wonder if it could exacerbate those kinds of issues to where it still is a wake-up call, but it's a wake-up call to realize, to understand better why it is that there's an aversion and why it is that there's a distancing. So I think everyone will experience it very differently depending on their makeup. But everyone's going to get a little awakening, I think, here.
Yes. Cause that's what Uranus does. It's termed the Great Awakener.
Yep,
so where is it awakening? Your Venus at this time. And I find it very interesting also to put another piece of that puzzle together, and working back to that first quarter moon in Virgo that we were just talking about, is that, the ruler, the dispositor of, Venus and Uranus right now in that conjunction in Aries is Mars. And, here Mars, on this day that we have that conjunction, not only is it going to be, it's at the 29th degree of Gemini. So it's at the last degree, the critical degree of moving into another sign. And a lot, not every astrologer will believe this, but, some will say that a lot of times that's a tested degree. And there's something about that nature before it moves on to the next sign, that we're being tested. And that test, to me might lie in the fact that it just squared Chiron, and will have been in a T square with that moon in Virgo, that just moved into Libra. So could be something about that whole Virgo transit and going, coming off of that first quarter moon and, cause we're just establishing a realness after that Virgo moon that's got us like down to like, okay, here's the reality of the situation. Mm-hmm. And we might be, kind of being tested on our own, where there might be pain, in this situation, or, pain involved with your own liberation. Cause sure, there can be like this can trigger maybe an emotional upset in a relationship. This could actually be, relationships breaking up, or it can be about redefining your own role in the relationship and shaking up old, pains that kind of set you back from being in a relationship. And like you said earlier, Shawna, about, when you have that aversion, that kind of Uranus, like you can't really commit energy, why is that? Like this could be a time where we're getting some type of insight into that situation that will not break us apart, but actually bring us closer together. So, as the old adage goes, if you love it, set it free, Yes. So there's a bit of that, to me in this transit. I found it interesting also that you noted that you were saying the conjunction happened on the same degree last year?
Yes, which I find really fascinating. And
yes.
Because Venus will conjunct Uranus about once a year, and Uranus moves very slowly. So it's typically within the same sign several times. So that's no surprise that the last few years the conjunction happened in the sign of Aries. But because Uranus has retrograded and just the way that things happened, the conjunction last year was April 22nd, 2016, and it was at 27 degrees of Aries. And this conjunction, again, it's Saturday, June 3rd this year. And it's also at 27 degrees Aries. So I find that really synchronistic.
Crazy.
I know, right? For our astrology geeks, I would I would look at that in your natal chart. I would look at what was happening for you around late April 2016 and just notice what themes are repeating themselves. Cause there's something there. I find that when an energy repeats like that, it's like telling a story. It's like, what is the story that's happening in your life? What's the theme that's repeating? What is it, that is being elaborated or that you're having a second chance, a second go around at, especially within these Venusian Uranus, themes that we've been talking about where it's like, love and having a strong sense of self and navigating through relationships in a way that's healthy and empowering.
Yes. And I had to go back and look when I saw that little tidbit, because I actually keep a journal. I keep a dream journal and I keep an animal journal where I do my own weekly journaling through animal cards, which I highly recommend. But I was able to go look back at this time of year for myself personally, and I found it very interesting that where we're at now, or where I personally am at now, I was having those issues back then, and then there's new development there. Where I was going down one path and I was seeing all these obstacles, and I was also starting a new path, which is, Venus and Aries, all about, fresh new beginnings. And that was kind of panning out for me in that moment. And I, of course, like any, normal person would, I went down, the path that was hard. And I learned a lot by it. And here I am back at this conjunction myself going, oh, wait a second. I've learned a lot by this. And there was, there was a lot to learn there. So I absolutely go back and if you journal like me, go back and take a look at what you had. I even had a crazy, crazy dream that day. Yes, I won't go into details there, but it had to do with symbols and a tattoo on my arm. So,
well, yeah.
But just
go ahead.
I was just going to add just real quick about the 27 degrees. I don't know if any of you out there are aware of fellow astrologer Christopher Witecki. He has a whole degree symbolism that he uses. And for this 27 degrees, his method would be to draw out what I feel and what I sense I can now act on. So that's some food for thought right there, but I digress.
Nice. Yeah, I think I love to look at all of the transits in the terms of cycles too. And so anytime that Venus does conjunct Uranus every single year, I feel like it's this whole new, it's a new year, new you. It's a new cycle of all of the themes that the planets represent. So yeah. And so Mel, I'm curious, what tarot cards did you pull for this particular transit?
Yes. So developing on this theme, we've got the Eight of Cups as our focus and the Empress as our grounding. And okay, so I'm kind of like, if I put those two cards together, I would ask, where can I let go at this time so that I can bring infinite possibilities into my life? Because the Eight of Cups is all about, letting go and seeking deeper meaning in life. And like, as we talk about, finding a greater authenticity for yourself. Because if you hold on to things that are no longer good for you, despite whether or not people, you might think you have to go down that path, which is exactly what happened to me in that last Venus conjunct Uranus I was talking about. I expected myself to go down this path, but it turns out that wasn't the one for me, even though others saw it in me and I saw it in myself. Sometimes the universe doesn't see that. So, with that Virgo moon that just happened, we might be discerning more about, the path that we're going to walk, and realizing that we have to emotionally let go of, certain, fears or shames or illusions. There's that Neptune again, that's keeping us and holding us back from our own, co-creation of reality, which is, the Empress and growth. So it's kind of what I'm seeing, there.
Yeah. And Mel, cause we talked about the cards briefly, before the episode, and I was really struck when you said that you had pulled the Eight of Cups and the Empress for this particular transit, because the Eight of Cups, it shows, a man walking away from these 8 cups. And it's, to me, this card, it's very much about saying, okay, I'm going to leave the thing that I may want. I'm going to go a different path. And there's almost like this sense of, sorrow about that decision and, but knowing that it's the right thing. And I think that's really so fitting for Venus Uranus, because Uranus does say, this isn't working. And, that does not mean to walk away from a challenging situation. It does not mean to walk away from a relationship, though you may feel that way. I think this is more walking away from relationship patterns that are not working, or looking at how it is that you can relate in a different way. And so yeah, I was really struck by how beautiful that is for this particular energy, that there is a need to change something. There is a need to walk away from something.
Absolutely. Because we're talking about a conjunction in Aries, which is, that Empress is really asking for us to birth new conditions. And like you said, it's not necessarily about just saying, I can't, I'm just going to, cut and run kind of situation. Sometimes it asks us to really go within and let go of certain aspects of ourselves, certain fearful aspects or, beliefs or whatever that kind of holds you back emotionally that, you haven't that's just kind of been playing a subconscious role in your life, because if you can let these things go at this time and embrace like the new growth that's around us, you know, especially with that sun trining Jupiter and this whole, you know, the fact that the moon's in Libra, during that time, is that we're going to be, allowing ourselves to really open up and get, you know, it's really about stepping into a new version of ourselves and emotionally letting go of, certain things, knowing that doing so will be on a better path. So.
Amen.
Yeah. So if you love it, set it free. And if you love yourself and you realize that your emotions are holding you back in some way from relating, you know, set yourself free. Because that's the thing, is that like, you know, Venus conjunct Uranus is kind of like, you know, I can't be tied down. You can't tie me down, you know, but are you tying yourself down? Like sometimes we're tying our own selves down, and it's not someone else, but we look outside ourselves because that's human nature.
Yeah. So. And, you know, I would say one last thing, about that before we move on is that the extent to which you feel like someone is holding you back or is tying you down, that may also be correlated to the way that you are somehow hindering your sense of self-expression or letting yourself have what you really want. Because I find, and I have Venus square Uranus natally, so I find that my self-imposed limitations are always reflected to me on the outside by the people in my life. And so, the more that I am holding myself back, the more that people will come into my life that are, more harsh with me. But when I'm really accepting myself for who I am, Uranus, then everyone else is cool and lets me do that. And so, it's always an inside job is I guess my point.
Yes.
With that.
Absolutely. Because, you know, once again, let me just reiterate that the closest aspect to this aspect is that North Node trine. So once again, we're back to our own inner soul growth here, and just being, you know, it's fire. It's a fire sign. Both of those are fire signs, which are all about, you know, like direct honesty. You know, fire signs can be like a little brutal in the honest department sometimes. But that's okay, you know, because it finds freedom in its ability to express itself there. So, tap into your inner Leo in this North Node move for this transit to really get you aligned to where, you know, you need to be. So that's very exciting. I actually know a lady that's getting married that day. So I am incredibly intrigued to see how that happens for her, cause she never thought she would get married, you know, and here's a perfect Venus conjunct Uranus is like, she has to let go, you know, that 8 of Cups, of her own preconceived notions of herself to join this relationship. So, I'm excited to see how that pans out for her. All right. Well, we've done Venus conjunct Uranus, and so we're on to the third piece of the puzzle, because I feel like these are all kind of tying into each other, which will give some overall umbrella questions at the end. But so next up to bat is the Sun square Neptune, which will be on Sunday, June 4th. So we can look for an active weekend next weekend. And it will be at 9:14 a.m. Pacific time. So once again, that's in the morning. So chances are you're going to feel this brewing, probably the day or two before, but probably, during the first quarter of that Virgo moon, because it's going to be an orb and form a T-square like we talked about earlier. So, Shawna, share with us what quote you have for the Sun squaring Neptune.
Yes. So this quote is by Mother Teresa, one of my favorites. She says, "If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other." And I love this so much for the Sun square Neptune, because that's what Neptune is all about, is this idea that we really do belong to each other. And, I see this as, even though it's a square, it really lends to the other energy of this week of the Venus and Uranus, because it reminds us that there is no me and you. Like, we're all a part of this big cosmic soup of energy. Yeah. And we are each other's caretakers. So I think this aspect, the Sun square Neptune, will remind us of that, and for better or worse. Yeah. So it could bring up huge, massive feelings of compassion and wanting to express creatively, wanting to connect in a way that feels more meaningful. And it could bring up some issues of confusing the identity, like, who am I in this world, and that kind of thing too. So yeah, I'm curious to see how everyone feels with this aspect. What are your thoughts, Mel?
Well, I find it very interesting because that whole buildup with the Virgo first quarter and the Venus conjunct Uranus. Tell Venus conjunct Uranus that you need to have compassion for someone else, like in Aries, So I think there's some type of challenge there, especially if we're needing to relinquish a part of ourselves. And Neptune is about that. It's a dissolving energy, and to have compassion for someone, you basically have to kind of give of yourself there, which can be a little bit hard. And especially with that Virgo moon that was a few days before, that to me kind of triggers this aspect. Neptune has to do with disillusion and not quite seeing things clearly. There's a foggy, as much because compassion and being Mother Teresa is definitely a high expression of Neptune. A lot of you are going to find Neptune is going to be a little bit more in the, I'm confused about this situation, or, because that Virgo moon we had just, gone through and created a T square with this Neptune aspect, which the sun now gets the square in exact, is that we are getting our emotions mostly wrapped around what reality is. And if your version of reality is not actual reality, the sun is going to square Neptune, and you're going to have to get a new awareness around it. Like, where have you not been looking at things clearly? Where have you maybe idealizing a situation, to your own, that's not to your benefit at some, And it also could do with Venus conjunct Uranus, like we were talking about earlier, is getting, yourself wrapped around the sacrifices you've had to make recently. Because Virgo is good at being able to sacrifice things that aren't working. Venus conjunct Uranus, we were talking about, the Eight of Cups and sacrificing something of yourself, perhaps. So there's a very sacrificial energy to me in this weekend, for the good. Like you said, it's a square. It challenges you in some way, but usually that challenge is going to bring you to the other end, where you'll be in a better situation.
Yeah, and I love that it is a square, even though, that's a harder aspect, but squares, they require your attention. Yes. You can't ignore it. So I actually feel better about this being a square versus a trine or something of that sort, because it does require that we face ourselves and this connection that we have, this spiritual connection. And how does that all fit in with the people that we're in relationship with? And what I find, what I'm always wary of with Neptune is it is such a delicate balance between intuition and spiritual connection, and going into fear or victimhood or escapism.
Yes.
And I think that we have support to stay on the high side with the Venus Uranus, because that is a strong energy. It's a strong self energy. But I would say for people who know that they tend to be either more on the ethereal side, more on the spiritual side, more on that are just generally Neptunian. If you're a creative, artistic, very ethereal person, I would watch your intuitions that you have this week, And I would really notice where that intuition gut feeling comes from. Does it come from a place of unbiased, it just comes in? Or is there any kind of like fear melded in there? And I think a perfect example is I was talking to my mom this week about my grandma, and she's getting older. She's getting into that phase where she just says whatever she wants, whenever she wants. And, my mom said something that really struck me. So my grandma's already a Pisces. So she's already like, sometimes she'll just say things that are the thing that I need to hear. And it's like from out of this world. But my mom said, grandma, she's becoming very intuitive. Like she'll just sense something with someone. She'll just kind of know. But then at the same time, sometimes she'll make up these stories about how a person is feeling, and it's really not the case. And it's when it's a story, it's typically a darker tone, and it's typically drawing on a fear that she has about something, that someone's not happy because of something she did, or etc. And I was curious. So I looked up her chart, and she's actually having a strong Neptune transit at this time.
Interesting.
So, I think there's such a strong potential for really fine tuning and strengthening one's intuition and listening to that.
I just remembered the point. And, that has to do, like you were saying with your grandma, about making up those stories that are coming from a fear. And that is really getting our minds wrapped around our own use of imagination. And how imagination, like you said, with artists and musicians and, visual, or just imagination in general, can be a very uplifting thing and creates these new worlds and, possibilities. But if your imagination is working against you and it's making from a place of, fear or, disillusion in a sense, you're going to be drawing up these, big pictures, that are not real. And that's when your imagination can work against you. So,
not real and not helpful.
And not helpful at all.
Yeah.
Unless the story's good, unless you're making up good things. But even then, if it's good, then you're like, oh, everything's fine. And really that Virgo is like, oh, no, actually it's not. Hello, wake up. 'Cause let's not forget that the sun is in Gemini. And that is all about challenging the way we look at things, and our whole minds are how our mind wraps around these Neptunian issues. And has our mind been in a fog? Do we need to clear that up? Or, or we're being challenged in our own mental awareness to get in line with areas that we may have those illusions in life, or where we may feel apathetic, or certain addictions and habits that we have, because that's a very Pisces thing too. So this could be an excellent time, actually, for anybody. When you had the Serenity prayer for Virgo, I immediately thought this could work for Sun Square Neptune too, because there's something about this aspect, especially with the mind being involved, that could be very triggering for anybody that has addiction issues, to me, to help them. Like the square, like a trine, like you said before, if it was a trine, we'd be going along with our illusions, no problem. Like everything's fine. Like it's all working out. But, the square is what really is like, okay, wait, I need a new perspective around the things that I'm, trying to escape, or, the addictions that I might have. And it's also about getting your mind wrapped around where your heart truly belongs, because once again, to refer back to that, the way, Christopher Witecki does, numbers at 14 degrees Gemini, it talks about, how our thinking can be wrapped up in our, basically where our heart belongs is going to involve how our thinking. So if we can get our thinking around the right area, and really start to challenge these issues, we're going to be in a better place with our own selves, is what I'm seeing there. So.
Yeah. And I think that's such a, important point, and it really speaks to the need this week to have create a healthy channel for your Neptunian energy, for your mental energy. So, whether you consider yourself creative or not, I think this week there needs to be something that you can do that allows that Neptunian energy to be explored in a way that's healthy and is instructive to your life, not destructive.
Exactly. And there's a lot going on that day, as well, because the moon squares Pluto a few hours prior. So here Pluto's coming back in the mix. I keep seeing his little Pluto. Pluto's just sneaking its head around the corner in little areas. But, like I said before, with the whole moon, it's kind of what triggers these bigger aspects. And not only that, a couple other things happening that day is Mars is moving into Cancer. So our Mars energy is going to be offline in a sense. Whenever something moves to the next sign, there's a little bit of an adjustment period, a little bit of a transition. So that day could just feel foggy in general, as far as your own, it's going to be a very internal, time. And then also our sun's dispositor, Mercury is in conjunct with Saturn. So our mind is getting itself wrapped around, especially Saturn and Sagittarius. So like a lot of this can have to do with our own belief systems, and where we might be being stubborn there, because Mercury is in Taurus right now. So, so yeah, well, there's just a lot going on. But let's segue into what the tarot has to say, because we might see a little new ideas sprout up there. So what I got for the Sun square Neptune from the tarot was that the focus is the Hierophant and the grounding is justice. So here we are with all these major arcana cards. There's some magic afoot in this weekend. Something to me is very much soul driven along our paths. Whether that's internally, externally, what have you. So when I think of the Hierophant and justice together, justice, here we are, keep in mind the moon is still in Libra during this transit. And, to me, it's kind of about committing to a decision. I know that sounds strange in line with what we were just talking about, but here Neptune, once again, we talk about escapism. Not putting boundaries around something, because that's what Neptune is. It's very, it's dissolving. It's nebulous in a sense. And the sun squaring that, could kind of heighten ways we need to, commit to our own decision, whether it's something we made outside of ourselves or internally.
Yeah. And I think is interesting too. Number one, I think it's amazing that there's two major arcana cards for this particular transit, and that we had two majors for the others as well.
Before it, yeah.
Yeah. But what I think is really interesting is the Hierophant, it's related to tradition, religion. It's related to looking to a certain moral code to do things. And so, that makes me think of how when Neptune is around, sometimes we can get caught in the right way to do things, the most spiritual way, the most ideal way. And, and I think with justice coming in, it's like, what does that really mean to you? And weighing that and, not getting lost in the way that things should be, but like kind of finding this balance, this justice balance of,
that's exactly. That's what it's all based on there. It's a karmic balance too, because justice is a very karmic card. It balances the universe, and all the decisions that are made, whether we make them or they're made outside of us, are really kind of tied in with this justice card. So there's a bit of like acceptance, to kind of the karma that's at play right now. And like, if you've made a decision, you got to live with it kind of thing. If someone else made a decision, you still have to live with it. So, And the nice thing about, and the thing with the Hierophant is that it's all about, I mean, it a lot of times represents a teacher, you know, someone coming your way that can give you greater knowledge. And sometimes that teacher is just a lesson that we're learning, and then we're our own teachers, and we go inside and we, are able to, you know, cause the Hierophant is also tapping into, it's the connection between, the earthly planes and the spiritual realms. So here we're talking about Neptune and the sun, you know, we're sitting in this in-between world of being able to access both, you know, being able to tap into, our dreams, and all that, you know, that lives in our imagination, but also reality itself. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a lesson to be learned here, in a sense, karmic lesson. And I don't want that to sound heavy, you know, cause karmic lessons can be kind of light too. They can be, when certain things happen. But yeah, it's really kind of about connecting with that, you know, the mundane and the spiritual, which we've seen, going on with the Virgo first quarter. Here we are talking about going in, connecting with your spiritual self, taking that time out, and that sun square Neptune. I've got a crazy motorcycle outside my house right now. If anybody hears all that noise, just FYI. So yeah, you know, because most importantly, when we have not said this, I don't think I said this in the beginning, is that this sun square Neptune, we are terming discovering your dreams. And that's another thing about Neptune, is it's really your dreams and the, you know, those idealistic utopian ideas that we have for ourselves, which absolutely can be made a reality if we do that Virgo, you know, work. Mm-hmm. Or we might be challenged now with the sun saying, hey, that's not very realistic now, is it? Or you have to get more realistic around how it is we're going to do this.
Yeah, because if you look at it in an entire cycle, this is essentially the first quarter square. This is the first quarter phase of the sun and Neptune together. So they would have conjunct in Pisces season when the sun was in Pisces. And so, when they came together initially, there was like this whole new cycle of spiritual connection to yourself and an awakening of intuition, possibly even. And so now it's like, yeah, like, what are you going to do with that? What does that really mean to you? Yes. Well, and that's the thing with the Hierophant, is it's a knowing, right? So here you are, you got new information, and you know, the justice is all about truth. So you've got new information that's more in line with your own truth, you know, that you can't really get around. So what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? How are you going to wrap your Gemini sun mind around these intuitions that are coming, to you that might have to push you, in an area that you're not as comfortable in, or it might address, cause squares aren't comfortable. They're action oriented. They can really get stuff done and you can see growth and progress in your life, but it's not easy. So, know that, you know, like, but hey, you know, nothing in life that's easy is rewarding, right? You know? Well, so I think that anything that requires engagement, yes, is going to be, uncomfortable, but ultimately, you'll see more results from it. And I would, as far as reflection questions for everyone too, like, you know, what to do with this. It's like, do you have that healthy channel for this energy? Do you have a journal that you work with? Do you have a creative practice that you do? And then also, I think for this aspect as well, in addition to the Virgo, is really key to have some type of body work done this week to have that grounding element as well, to create, what Marianne Woodman, she always refers to it as having like a strong physical consciousness to go along with your feminine consciousness, to have a strong vessel, for your intuition.
And I totally agree with that, because if you look at everything that we've talked about and that we're going to be encountering, the only earth energy that we have going on, I mean, aside from Mercury being in Taurus, but as far as like the triggers that we're talking about is that Virgo first quarter moon. So, you know, with that fire conjunction of Venus and Uranus, and then we have air and water squaring, you know, that Virgo moon is really where we need to get grounded and in touch with our own, you know, the reality and what's going on the earthly plane. Not all these concepts, not all these inspirations, not all these emotions, but what's real, you know, what is real. And like you said, with some body work like that, it grounds you. It gets you connected with what is, and it makes you feel great. Like, yes. I mean, I don't know if any of you do, you know, yoga out there or have gotten massage treatments, but I bet not a single one of you has walked away and been like, that sucked, you know? It feels great. So, you know, why not treat yourself? Because, you're worth it.
It does feel fantastic. Yeah.
Yes. So I absolutely agree with that. I would ask how you can, you know, deeper your own, spiritual practice at this time. And to ask yourself, you know, do you have one foot, in reality and one in your dreams? You know, are you standing, with both feet in your dreams and you can't get anything off the ground, or you might be a little idealistic? Or do you have 2 feet in reality and you don't have any faith in the matter and you won't dare let yourself dream? You know, like that's the thing with the Hierophant is you want to stand in one realm and the other and bring them together. So, yes. Very interesting I love this week. I don't even know what to expect, but I'm very intrigued about, you know, what these transits are going to bring to us. It feels like it's some brewing energy that's happening. And any of you listeners out there, I would love for you to comment and let us know what's happening to you, or what you see in the world and your general observations, because both of us would be very intrigued, to know.
Yeah, I would love that. It does have a certain sense of excitement to it. And, for me, I always find it ultimately fascinating when it's like, we can talk about all of these things and potentials. And then I love actually seeing what happens, like not just for myself, but the people in my life and clients. And it makes it, you know, as you were saying, it makes it real. So that's
exactly,
fun.
You know, and that's how we learn from it, right? You know, because astrology lives in the realm. It's kind of a Neptunian realm, mixed with a little Uranus, but, these are inspirations. They're ideas. We're looking at something that hasn't, yet happened, and we're wrapping our mind around the symbolism of it all. So to see how that plays out in, real life, is not only, very entertaining, but incredibly valuable to us. So I encourage you to share your thoughts.
And you know, just to take that a step further too, before we move on, because I know, we're moving on time, but I think it's not just entertaining and it provides learning opportunities, but I also love this concept that, Richard Tarnas has expressed, in his book, Cosmos and Psyche. He talks about how the archetypes are actually living through us. And and when we live, we are embodying, we're not just experiencing the archetypes of the planets. We're actually, co-creating them, as we live. And so just our living it informs the archetypes, it elaborates on them, and it provides more possibilities. So, that's something that I'm really excited about, especially, at doing the feminine principle and Neo Feminine Astrology. I think that the more that we continue to live and the more that women become liberated and empowered, I think that it provides more healthy and accurate examples of what different archetypes are like, and moving away from a patriarchal kind of system and society and moving into more equality in that way.
Absolutely, you know, because us women, you know, we're the nurturers, we're the receptive ones. So unless we are kind of, allowing ourselves to, get in touch in that zone, we're not nurturing ourselves or others the best that we could too. You know, we're a very powerful force. Like the whole earth basically started on the feminine principle and then, was able to, you know, and fully embrace that until we got into a patriarchal, structure along the way. So doing all this work is not only, it's not only valuable for your own self, but in turn that it really does change the world. Like you as an individual, whether you realize it or not, the choices that you make and the awareness that you allow yourself to have, really does affect the world, and in a good way. You know, if you're truthful and honest with yourself and receptive, you're just going to pass that on to others. So. Yay, feminine! Yay! Okay, so great point, Shawna. So here we are. We're gonna wrap it up. So what have we learned about the matters of the heart? The matters of the heart seem to be a facet of this, absolutely. But there's also matters around getting real with your own heart. In a sense, to me, like getting real.
Keeping it real with the heart.
Keeping it real, heart. So, you know, like so with that Virgo moon, where are you discerning? Where are you allowing, are you allowing your inner self to talk to you at this time? You know, Sun square Neptune. Same thing, you know, are you listening to your dreams? Are you discovering what your dreams have to say? Are you a little idealistic in an area, you know? Are you deepening your spiritual practice enough? Are you connected enough in that realm? Venus conjuncting Uranus, you know, what can you let go of at this time? You know, possibly within yourself to allow all those new possibilities and growth to come into your life, you know? Where can we allow ourselves to grow by sacrificing, in a sense?
Yeah, and as I'm pulling everything back and looking at the big picture of all of these different aspects for this week, it's so interesting because it really calls for a blend of being open and accepting new possibilities, and then at the same time having your feet on the ground and saying, okay, there's this amazing thing or this amazing idea, or there's all of these possibilities, and then at the same time, what am I going to do with that? So it's like having this a bit of flexibility, but not too much, and just having this really tender balance within yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And most importantly, what we're really getting out of this is what's your intuition saying? What's that little voice inside your head saying this week? Because that voice is kind of the director of everything here. So do take the time and you know, allow yourself just to listen and really get in tune, because I think that's going to trigger the blend of all this of all these transits that are going on. You know. And Neptune loves to blend, so it's here like, oh yeah, I'll hang out with you. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I would leave everyone with a few initiatives or a few actions to move forward for the week. I would definitely mark on your calendar Wednesday to do a little check-in with yourself, and that could be maybe you have a morning meditation or evening, or you just take a moment to check in and say, okay, what's happening? How am I feeling? Check in with your gut. I think that's a good day to do that. And then even now, you know, what are your next steps with what it is that you're working on? Is there something that you've been feeling in your gut that you need to do or that you need to say? And how can you allow for that action in your life in this next week?
Absolutely. Because like we said in the early part of this program was, we are in, the first half of this new moon. So this is all about taking action in our lives, and seeing our own stories grow in a dynamic way. So how can we help that along? Because the energy is really there right now. The energy is there. So allow it to work for you and work with it. So yeah, okay. Well, I am so glad that you all were able to join us and take a listen to the things we have to share in this second episode. And we will be back the following week with some new transits to wrap your mind around. So I wish you all a happy week. And also let's give a little plugs here, so you can share, in case you're wondering more about myself and Shawna, you can find me at, energeticprinciples.com. You can also find me on Instagram at energetic principles. And I do little daily pictures there to, highlight the certain transits that we have every day to get your mind thinking around what's going on. And I also do some YouTube videos. And there's currently a video up right now on the Sun in Gemini, and horoscopes around what you can expect during the Sun in Gemini season for, each sun and rising sign.
Yeah. And, you can find me on my website, neofeminine.com. I'm also on Instagram at Neo Feminine Astrology. And yeah, on Instagram, I post a lot about the moon through the different signs so that you can get a day-to-day feel of, how to plan your day. And I do, a lot of chart interpretations there too, just for fun.
Yes. Check that out there. It's very entertaining, and, she's always got new content up. Yeah. And then last but certainly not least, we both do readings. So if you would like to connect with either one of us, regarding finding out more about your chart, cause like we said, these are all generalizations, but it really the meat of everything happens in your own chart and how these transits connect with you. So if you were looking for a more, personal interpretation, I highly encourage you reaching out to either one of us. So yeah, okay. So Venus and you, matters of the heart. I'm intrigued to see what all happens this week. And I wish, the best to all of you, in this coming transits. So, all right. Any closing words, Shawna?
I just am sending everyone lots of love and wishing you an amazing week.
Perfect. All right. Everybody, may the stars be with you.
Namaste.